Hey everybody, it's Katrina from the Twinflame Way. It's just me today. Anne is with some of our kids right now. Those of you who are just getting to know us will find out that we have 5 kids between us, and right now it's summer break when I'm recording this video, so we have a lot of school-age kids that are with us, and so we're going to be putting out a lot of new videos, and we're really excited about that. We've been building a lot of content and engaging in a lot of conversation with you guys online, and we have lots of questions that have been asked and lots of topics, lots of content and material for you guys that we'll be putting out on video, but you'll probably be seeing a lot of videos with either just myself or Anne, and we'll have some with both of us too. And then you guys can always join us for the meditation in the Twinflame meditation group on Facebook, and we'll both be present in that group. If you want to be with us together online, that's a great way to do that. We have so much love for you guys, so much to give. So let's jump in today's topic. Today I'm going to talk to you guys about the ego. What is the ego and how did I get one? We put some messages out online and about the ego, and I knew we was going to be teaching about this, and I knew when I put it out there it was going to ruffle some feathers, and that's because the nature of the topic. Anytime we try to confront the ego, it fights back. So I had a whole bunch of questions. A whole bunch of people have been doing work trying to do ego deflation work and stay in love, and so I've got a lot of questions from you guys about that, and I'm going to answer them today in this video and expand on some of those questions now. I'm going to talk to you guys about how the ego came into creation. I'm going to talk to you guys about what you can do now that you have one. So let's start with what is the ego. So the ego is the small separate self. It is the small storyteller. It's the inventor of the shoulds and the shouldn'ts and the coulds and the couldn'ts, and it's the judge within. Okay, I hope that's making sense. I'm just unfolding this really slowly because we really have a hard time. And I say we because we are one, and I'm going to talk to us as one, myself included. So I'm not higher or better than you. I'm included. We're all one. We're all one individual creation. The human creation. And we perceive ourselves a certain way, and that is not the way God perceives us. That is not the way our Creator perceives us. We perceive ourselves as separate. And because we perceive ourselves as separate from God, we also perceive ourselves as separate from one another. And this is where the ego comes in. The ego is the construct that allows us to function in the mind as a separate self. And this is a false self. It's not a true self. It's not a reality. This is why the ego self, the small self, is constantly changing sort of chaotically, up and down, this way, that way, very volatile, always coming up with a new story, always reinventing itself because it doesn't actually exist. And anytime we shed a light on the ego function, it's going to immediately try to morph into another function because it's a self-protecting creation. And that leaves a lot of you guys feeling powerless, okay? And this is where this is going to be really helpful, is to understand how to claim your power back from the ego construct. And it starts with a really simple understanding, one piece of knowledge that may challenge many of you in your minds. And I'm going to give you some tools on this video on how to unfold your awareness to this truth, and that is this. You created your ego. Okay, it's not a part of your design. God didn't design you to have an ego. God didn't design you to be separate. The separation that we experience from God, from consciousness, from each other, is a false construct, and it is one of our creations. And some of you may be sitting there going, oh, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't create it. And that's because you're still seeing yourself as separate. You're still seeing yourself as a separate individual, not utterly connected and absolutely united with the rest of your brotherhood, of the rest of the human beings. And it's very difficult for us to accept because we have some things that we think are evil in the world, like ISIS, for example. And it's easy to sit over here on my little Zafu meditation pillow with my yoga and my kombucha, feeling really spiritual and feeling really, good and morally right. And to look across the world and go, oh yeah, that's evil. Those men that do those things to women and children, mass murder is evil. But, and this will challenge you, because that your judgment of these evils in the world is your judgment. So God doesn't see evil. God isn't perceiving us as evil, having left the good creation that God made, and now we have to earn our way back into God. And we really got into trouble. That's not right either. So God just sees what God created, which is absolutely perfect. And so what we have done is we have come up with this really horrific story about being separate from God, about being powerless, about needing salvation, okay, needing penance, and we've come up with all these ideas and thought systems about how to get back into our right mind, get back into our right way of being and doing. And all of that is absolutely false. It's absolutely part of the ego construct and the separation mindedness. So the ego is going to say, you are this. You are a wife. You are a daughter. You're a good person. You're a bad person. You are a victim. You're an abuse victim. So you're damaged now. You were abused, and now you're going to abuse others, and your pain is going to stay here, and I'm going to protect you. Okay? This is what the ego story does. The ego says, okay, this is who you are, and I'm going to protect you. I'm going to make sure that you stay intact with who you are. Only all of this is lies. Okay? Every label, every name, every construct that we come up with to say who we are is out of the ego. Okay? Because we are not any of those things. We are simply a creation of God. And we are full of God, consciousness, universal life energy. I don't care what you call it. Okay, we're all speaking the same language here. We're talking about the pure raw energy of life itself. That's what we are. And so what we perceive is construct of our mind. Now that doesn't mean we can't perceive truth. We absolutely can. But when we are perceiving truth, and these are the little hints that you'll get along the way, is how do I know if what I'm perceiving is true knowledge versus an ego construct? And it's really simple. The spirit unites, the ego divides. And you can begin to experience that as a feeling, or you can experience it by really watching your thoughts. Any form of judgment, any form of and this even goes back to the judging of the right and the wrong. I had this moment, and I was in this prayer group, and this prayer is happening. And in the prayer, there's this invitation to pray for whoever you would name. And so there were some prayers said aloud, and then there was this opportunity for everybody to silently or aloud say a prayer for someone or some group. And so this is when all of the stuff with ISIS had come out in the news, and It was really overwhelming to a lot of people. And I was really trying to embrace this group of people with love. And that may sound crazy to you, but I had already made the choice to view the world and view others in love and not in ego. And so this was, I thought, well, if I can love ISIS, I can love anybody, right? So I had this moment where I just began to compassionately view these people. And when I did this, I became overwhelmed. I became full of the Spirit of God to the point that tears just began to pour down my face. And I became so full of compassion, overwhelmed. And it was shocking to me that so suddenly, just by asking, I could be overwhelmed with compassion for a group of people that were doing what is perceived as extreme evils, the most evil acts of our times. And as I did this, over the next several weeks, what began to unfold was a different story about ISIS. I began to find articles that would just mysteriously cross my path online, and they weren't popular articles, but I began to receive true knowledge from God about what this is that exists in the world. And the story was very different from what I heard in the news. And in the story, I learned about what is really happening with these people who are recruited, who are completely displaced and disillusioned, who have endured a great loss and great traumas and are uprooted, and how they're so vulnerable and susceptible to the regime, and how the regime is expanded by recruiting and converting these really vulnerable men into their regime. And so once they're in there, they're then drugged with this designer drug that is made especially for that they've especially made for their regime, which causes extreme sleeplessness and psychosis and hallucination with severe aggression and violence. And so that's what's happening. And so it begs the question, how did it start in the first place? You know, who was the originator of the evil? Okay? Because when we start to trace it back, if we can find compassion for the few, then we have to find compassion for the many, for the whole. Because that's what compassion it does. It flows outward and it covers all. And so for me, I didn't really need to find out and have any more specific knowledge about ISIS. My prayer was answered, and that was for compassion, because I can easily see how any person under the right circumstance is capable of those acts. And so this story unfolded for me in a way that allowed me to see how if I had been subjected to those incidents, I'm not sure I wouldn't have ended up in the same place doing the same thing. And so I really can't look across the world and go, oh, that's not me. That's evil. Because that is a very prideful attitude to have, because I am in a very privileged society where I have endured very little trauma in comparison. So this began to help me to find compassion for so many of these things that are really scary to a lot of people that are happening in the world. And so I won't stay on that any longer. I want to tell a couple of more stories about bringing compassion into those places, and instead of ego, instead of judgment. Okay, and these are things you can use anytime, you know. So praying and asking God directly for compassion for something that's really difficult for you is always a prayer that is answered if you leave yourself an open mind and an open heart. And I would say that, you know, what must precede that is a choice to be free of the ego. You don't need to choose to be free of the ego and then figure out how to do it. You just need to make the choice, and then watch yourself, watch your thoughts, watch your beliefs, watch your feelings. And answers will come and guidance will come, and compassion and these really expansive experiences just between you and God will come, like the one I described being in the prayer group. So here's another story. One of my meditation teachers, the woman who was initiated me in transcendental meditation and was my meditation teacher, was at one point a disciple of Amma. She was one of Amma's disciples. Amma is also known as the Hugging Saint, and she's in India. She's from India. Her ashram is there, and she has many disciples, many people who come and learn from her because she's a very powerful spiritual teacher, and she has transcended ego. So she is one of the few human beings who's free of ego. She's completely a miracle worker, so she can do amazing miracles. And this is all information that I've received secondhand, but once removed. So from somebody who was there and witnessed these things. And that's why I want to share it with you, because it was really personal to me to be in that lineage and to hear this story. And so one time my teacher is at the ashram with Amma, and she's receiving a lot of sick people, and a lot of people have been in line for hours or days, and they're coming to see her. And this is what she does. You know, she receives people, and it's very different in India when she receives people than here in the States when she tours. So she's receiving people, and many of her disciples are there. And there's this man that has been coming to see her, and he's a leper, and he's starting to seek spiritually because he's very ill and he's very afraid. He wants to live and be well and be with his family. And so he comes, and she begins to teach him and love him. And she begins to look at his body and his wounds because his leprosy. And she begins to clean his wounds with her own saliva, with using her mouth. And she's cleaning out the wounds and doing this with her mouth. And I know that's shocking to a lot of you guys. Are going, why are you telling me this? And I think that's the power of the story, is that it is shocking. And so the disciples are, totally horrified. Like, what are you doing, Amma? This is really gross. Like, and approach her and ask her, how can you do that, Amma? How can you do that? And she just looks at them and says, because he is me. He is me. And I take that story to heart, because I know it takes for a person to do that for another person like that in that particular situation. That person must really, really know that we are all one. And she's doing for him what she would do for herself, because she does not see them as separate. And so I'm sharing some of these stories that have been influential for me in helping to move away from ego-mindedness, move away from separation thinking. And my hope for you is, as you're hearing some of these stories, it's starting to inspire you a little bit to seek in this way, because this is just the product of my seeking. And I have many, many more amazing stories and miracles that have been shown to me in my asking on this journey. And so what is required to embrace this journey of being free from the ego is one, to understand that you are the creator of your own ego. And for many of you, that's so hard. For many of us, it's hard to accept that we're the creator of our own ego, because we don't think we're that powerful. But we have the whole Spirit of God, should we choose it. We are made in the image of God. We are absolutely powerful creators. Every thought that we have creates form. Everything that we experience in our life is a result of our thoughts and our beliefs. And so is the ego. And so we can absolutely be free of it. And I don't have a lot of energetic answers as to what that looks like. A lot of people will talk about being in 5D and whether or not our bodies change. We have our bodies die first. And I'm not really talking about that today. I'm talking about embracing a journey and allowing it to unfold, because we all have to, all of us perceived individuals. This isn't something that one of us can do and then go off into ascension and then see you, bye, awesome, good for you. You know, no, this is a one boat deal. Like, we're all in this boat together. We all got here together, and we all, you know, ascend into union with God together. Now, that's kind of a paradox because we already are in union with God, but the collective perception of the collective human perception is separateness right now. So we have to start somewhere, okay? And the starting place is, yeah, I am powerful enough to create my ego, and so now I'm going to stop. Creating that. And how do I do that? So, here's the part where of the video where I'm going to give you a couple of tools on how to do that. And this was something that many of you asked for specific information on, is how do I choose more love, and how do I stay out of ego? I'm truly trying to do this. And I'm going to give you a little tip here, and it's, you cannot fight the ego. It doesn't exist. Okay? Fighting the ego is like getting into an argument with an idiot. Getting into an argument with somebody who just wants to argue. They don't have any true knowledge or education about what they're talking about. They really just like to be combative. And so trying to fight and resist the ego is kind of the same as that. You're just going to get tied up in a lot of resistance because the ego doesn't exist. Instead of trying to push away the ego and the ego behavior, instead, just move to love. Just move to loving thoughts. You can just start there. Your thoughts might not be really loving at first. Your thoughts might be, well, at least I didn't, cuss that person out this time. Maybe if you're just prone to outburst and you tend to get, when your ego is ruffled, you tend to be flying off at the mouth. Maybe that's you. And you really dislike that about yourself, and you want to get free of ego because you want to stop that behavior. Well, you might practice putting some space in between those occurrences, that is spacing out that pattern a little bit, and then acknowledging that progress is being made. And that might be the loving thought that you're offering. It might be loving thought to yourself. Maybe you don't have the loving thought for someone else right now, and then you can offer the loving thought to yourself. And if it's really hard for you to offer a loving thought to yourself, then I would encourage you to go back and allow God to offer loving thoughts to you. And that's really easy because whatever the best, most loving thought you can think of that God could come up with for you or for anybody, you can even use someone else as an example. If you are really just bogged down in a low sense of self-worth, then just try thinking about how God loves somebody else, maybe that you love, and just start to raise the bar on that a little bit. Just come up with the best story you can. One of the things I started with is God is making all things work to my greater good no matter what. God is making all things work to my greater good no matter what. Because I perceived in myself at the beginning of my spiritual journey a lot of faults. And I was really hard on myself and very perfectionistic. And so I was very critical of any mistake that I would make. And it was really good for me to say that affirmation. God is making all things work to my greater good no matter what. Because it is true. And it released me from judging myself constantly and going, oh God, you really screwed that up. You really botched that one, So instead of getting in that cycle of thought, I would just be like, oh yeah, you know what? God is making all things work to my greater good no matter what. So it's not a license to ill, but it's something that is a tool that can be used when to help repattern the thinking out of being judgmental and critical. And it works in forgiveness too. It works in, somebody did something that I felt was a slight against me or was inconvenienced me in some way or harmed me in some way. All that's ego. Nobody can harm you. Nobody can damage you. You are utterly powerful. The power of the Spirit of God is yours should you choose to claim it. So let go of that story and just try a different story. How about God is making all things work to my greater good? Somebody cuts you off in traffic, you're late for work, and hey, let's see, what is God unfolding in my day that is better than I had planned? You know? So that's how we begin to move away from the ego-mindedness, is we begin to root more deeply in God and trust that whatever is happening, instead of meeting it with criticism and judgment, trust that whatever is happening will be by divine design, is by divine design, because the Spirit of God is full of grace. And so no matter what thoughts have been going on, whatever the thought patterns, whatever the behaviors, whatever it is that we perceive that we're uncomfortable about, God can use all of that for a miracle. You know, a miracle can occur, and then, you know, and just completely turn the whole thing around, you know. So I'm trying to think of an example, and maybe one will come to me before the end of the video. But I do want to move on to the other tools. So practicing affirmations to about within your belief system about God is a great way to start moving away from ego-mindedness. Turning love to yourself, thinking loving thoughts about yourself. If you don't have to offer the loving thoughts to offer others quite yet, start there. Okay, so God, self, and then to others. You know, receive the love from God, give it to yourself, and as it flows into you, start giving it to others. This is the way the Spirit flows. And if we just leave it given to ourselves and it doesn't flow to others, then we can't continue to receive it, because it is a flow. And so we're damming it up, and we receive it when we give it. What we give is what we receive. It's one and the same. So practice that. And here's another tool. When you find that you're beginning to criticize others, and this kind of ties in with my story about Amma, and this is very powerful to practice this, and it will maybe feel a little weird and awkward and kind of sound crazy at first, but just try it. When you find yourself judging or criticizing another person, stop. You won't always recognize when you're doing it, but when you do recognize, stop and say several times, there I go. Not there you go judging, criticizing. There I go, in reference to that other person. Affirm that you are that person. I am that. There I am. Doing whatever. There I am bagging my groceries. So one time, this is a tool that was given to me by the Spirit, and it was along my journey, asking to be free from ego, and asking God to show me the way. And I knew that I had a critical thought pattern, criticism toward others, blame toward others. And so one day, and I had really, this was a long time ago, and had really been praying a lot on this. And so I'm driving my car, and there's this woman in her car. She has stopped in the lane of traffic that I'm in to check her mail at the road on what is a somewhat busy street. And so she's blocking traffic. And just because that's the thought and pattern that I have, I'm like, you know, and I'm starting to think critical thoughts, like really judgmental thoughts. Like I'm looking over there, I'm evaluating her. I'm looking to see it, you know, does she look like a lazy person to me? Like, why couldn't she drive in her driveway and then get out, you know, and walk to the mailbox? Like I'm really deep into, you know, a nanosecond, but I'm really deep into critical thought about this person. And then I went, oh yeah, there I go checking my mailbox from the road. There I go feeling really tired and and I began to like channel this woman, and it was a really incredible thing, but I began to feel what she was feeling and channel what was going on with her. And I knew why she was doing what she was doing when I made the decision to be one with her. And instead of to separate myself in judgment and criticism, and all of a sudden I just had this immense compassion for this woman who is checking her mail and delaying me by 45 seconds or something, to nothing important. But so I'm sharing that with you because that is a really powerful tool. And if you use that, and you remain open in your mind as you choose to use that tool, the same will happen to you. You'll begin to get that flood of compassion and that flood of the knowledge from the Spirit that will give you the experience of being one with others, and that's what it's all about. One with God and others. That's freedom from the ego. To begin to really see, know, feel, and experience that oneness is freedom from ego. So, so try that out. And let's see. One more tip for you guys. When you're struggling with something that it needs love, and you just don't know how to stop the hamster wheel of the brain from going off on it. A lot of you are on a twin flame journey, and it's your twin flame. There's constantly a hamster wheel going on about the twin flame. Really simple technique to move out of the mind and the mental energy, because that's going to be ego activity, is to move that idea, that object, reduce it to its very core. If it's a person, reduce it to that person as a child of God. If it's a situation, reduce it to the most simplified version you can. And then just with your visualization, with your just with your intention, and begin to feel into the heart space. Move that from the head. You're going to feel all that activity in the head. Move it down here. Just visualize that you're moving it down into the heart and feel it there. And just invite it into the heart space and begin to sit with it in the heart space and watch what happens. Watch what changes in your energy system. Watch the changes in your thoughts. It will almost immediately stop the hamster wheel in the mind and begin to open a flood of compassion in the heart. And when you open that flood of compassion in the heart, you'll begin to receive true knowledge from the Spirit of God about whatever that is. And then you will have amazing, miraculous guidance on how to respond. You will begin to enjoy your life as the miracle that it is. And you will begin to know your power. When we align out of this separation mindedness, we come out of ego, we align with the Spirit of God, we choose to receive the Spirit of God. That's where all the joy and happiness is. And it's just a choice. And there is practice and discipline that comes with it, because we don't get there on the idea of going there. You don't get free from the ego on the idea. It actually takes committing some energy, and by beginning to go on that journey. And I would really encourage you, one of the big principles of this, and you just aren't going to get very much progress on the journey, freeing yourself from ego, if you don't begin to share that with others. It's really important. Don't do it in a judgy way. Don't do it in a, oh, I know how to free myself from ego. I'm going to show you how, because I can see that you're an ego right now, No, not like that, but in a really genuine way. Begin to share the message as you receive it, even when it's not fully formed. Just begin to share little bits as you may feel invited, as you may feel openness in others. Begin to share little bits of your little baby steps on your journey to freedom from ego, your journey into union with God, your consciousness fully expanded and aware of the Spirit of God within you. As you start to share it, more will come. But it's it's a really important spiritual principle that it is more comes once it is shared, once it is given. So that's a lot of information in this video. And Ann and I do mentoring. We do that over Skype. So if you guys are, some of you guys are really serious about this journey, and I would definitely recommend a mentor on this journey. I've had several, and it's absolutely the best investment, because imagine opening yourself and your life to the full power of the Spirit of God to wholly create your highest joys, your greatest desires. You know, who wouldn't invest in that? And so Ann and I offer that, and we offer it in packages. So the way that works is, you know, go on our website, www.thetwinflameway.com, and go to our services page, and you can see there what we're offering right now. And we do coaching and readings as well. And then in the meditation group, you'll see us there live, and we leave those recorded. And that's on Facebook. You can just search Facebook for Twinflame Meditation Group and join in. Just follow the guidelines into the group and get plugged in that way. That's our gift to you. That group is free right now, and it's a huge value. I come from a long lineage of really amazing meditation teachers in many different practices, and I'm sharing that gift with you guys for the sake of giving the gift right now. And I'm really passionate about that, and would love to see more you guys in there and understand how I can be of more service to the community out here on the Twin Flame journey. So join us in there and follow our page, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Like I said, we are going to come out with a lot more videos. A lot of you have messaged us questions, a lot of comments on our messages that we've been putting out, asking for more detail. And so we'll be coming out with more videos soon about all of that. And until then, big love, and be the powerful creator that you are.